I'm excited because this is my first happy hour from my new house.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
congratulations, Heather. We're
Congratulations.
covering
That's
it.
awesome.
Thank you. Yeah.
That's a very big deal.
Hmm.
That is quite exciting. And your horses, both of them, are coming next week. Is that right?
They'll be here this weekend, so they move in on Sunday.
Wow. So that'll be another christening that'll be happening.
Hi, David. Thanks for joining us. We're just getting
Welcome.
everybody's coming in and yeah.
We are all in for a great treat. I'm curious how many here went to Scaling New Heights. I'm going to raise my hand.
I see some folks I know were there.
Definitely. Hey, everybody.
And I'll start sharing screen. So you should see my screen now. Yeah.
Yep. Yep, I can see it. Fantastic.
Fabulous. All right, so I'm gonna look to see too. So, oh, yep, Vicky, Michael, you said hello, Jennifer. Yes, of course, I got a chance to talk to you several times. And oh, yeah, so Debbie, first timer.
We've got lots of friends here. Mike McClellan is here, and Patty and Rich.
And
Very
there's a question about my finger and how it survived the 4th of July. And I'm just, I love fireworks and I didn't get to do them as a kid, so I definitely enjoy them as an adult. But I learned a valuable lesson that you can't just assume because you've shot off a particular kind of firework before that it's going to act the same again. So I still have fingers.
Yes, she still has fingers. I was a little worried about that. I was telling Liz earlier today that I saw a Facebook post that on, right before the Friday, probably on the third, that said, so today there will be people that will not have all their fingers tomorrow. So when I saw your post, Liz, I was like, thank goodness she has all her fingers.
Well, and my kids weren't here, and I'm so glad. This is the first year that we've been kidless, and so they are all doing their own thing. And I'm really glad that they didn't see mom do some stupid stuff. But yeah, I do have fingers, and then I've got a chemistry sister-in-law who had said put mustard on burns, and my gosh, it worked out great. It takes the vinegar in it, takes the burn right out, and it keeps it from blistering. So
That's
made
pretty
a huge
incredible.
difference.
Yeah. That's pretty incredible because I would think that vinegar, because it's so salty and acidic, that you would think that it would hurt. Does it hurt when you put it on?
It hurts in general whenever you have
Well,
a
yeah.
burn. So it actually took some of the sting out. So that was good. It was very good. And
Good.
the area that I did not get the mustard, because the mustard actually keeps the vinegar in place. Otherwise, it would just roll right off. But the area that I did not get the vinegar is the only spots that blistered, and those were oddly enough the most minor spots. So it makes me wonder if I had not have put the vinegar on there, just how badly I would have blistered. So I feel pretty fortunate.
Good. No, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Well, talking about things that just happened, scaling new heights, and we have Joe Woodard here with us today. And we're going to be unpacking scaling new heights and also talking about, one of the top of mind conversations that happened almost in every single room today. So welcome,
Yeah.
everyone.
Yes, absolutely. So it was a wonderful, wonderful, I would say, Joe, that I think it was one of the best yet.
Mm.
So very exciting.
I'm
And
not
we're
very objective,
I,
but I will say, as objective as I can be, I think it was the best one. 2017 was the one to beat, I think, on theme and content and overall design and creative arc with Face the Yeti, and I think we
Mhm.
surpassed Face the Yeti this year. So
That's awesome. And Jennifer is agreeing that is the best one ever. So yay.
Well,
Exciting.
and I'm excited about next year, which we're going to talk about a little bit. Yay! And so to me, Tame the Machines was the year. That
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 was
one
pretty
to me
awesome.
was
Yeah,
huge. So, and
that
I'll
was
share why here in a little bit. But
yeah.
Um, Heather and I are your hosts. We are with you every single happy hour, and we're thrilled to be your host. And we have a special guest that I want to get right to. And Joe, I feel like our audience that's joining us today all know you, but for those who may not be aware, Scaling New Heights, I believe, is the best conference in our profession. And I think that, when I'm asked that question, the answer that I have is it brings together minds that want to go deep and deep in education, deep in conversation at tables, and willingness to share and make lifelong friendships. So, welcome, Joe, to the happy hour with us.
It's always great to be here.
Well, thank
Awesome.
you.
Yeah, so we've been going, this was my 11th Scaling New Heights. I think Liz, you and I started going in the same year, which was 2014. And after my first one, I was definitely hooked. And the only one that I missed uh, was the during COVID. I wasn't able to make it to one of the events in COVID. Because I think you had two in one year, Joe, right? Within a
No,
12-month period.
no, we moved 2020 and 2021 to the fall, but they were never actually in the same calendar year. There
Oh, okay.
there was a period where they were 6 months apart. 2021 to
Right.
2022, they were 6 months apart, but they
Yes.
always stayed in the same calendar year, which my tax
Right.
preparer appreciated since we're
Well,
calendar year end.
and
So
I have a rare person inside of chat that I see who's saying that he has never heard of Scaling New Heights, and so I feel like we should slow down. And Joe, do you want to explain the desire and the aim of Scaling New Heights?
Yeah, so just really fast because I know we have a lot to talk here with the AI
we
topic,
do.
but
Yeah.
I founded Scaling New Heights back in 2009. This was our 17th conference. And we have held a conference every year, including through COVID. No one got sick, by the way. We followed protocols, separation, masks. We were very safe about it. And we're very proud of the fact that all of our contact tracing said nobody got sick. But we did them in 2020 and 2021 as well. And we have a couple of things that we've achieved over the last 17 years. One, we're the most product agnostic show in terms of attendee reach as well. AICPA Engage has a product agnostic show floor, but it's hosted by the CPA Society, largely for CPA firms. So we're agnostic on attendees as well, credentialed, non-credentialed, enrolled agents, CPA, bookkeepers, tax preparers, small business consultants who consult on back office technology, value-added resellers. And then we're agnostic on the tech. Anybody can play, no limitations, including even if you have an overlap competitively with Woodard. We're Switzerland.
Right. We are.
Everybody gets to come on our show floor who wants to participate. And we have the largest accounting technology showcase in the country. We're very proud of that.
Yeah, it was phenomenal. I mean, one of the things that we added this year that I think was just such a huge value add was the walking tours of the exhibit hall, which really helps, especially those that are first timers, helps them to kind of get a lay of the land. And it doesn't seem so overwhelming, but because with 150 exhibitors, it can be like, where do you even start? So
Yeah.
it's like Carrie really loved them too. So awesome. So Joe has so much to talk about as far as AI, which was the overarching, I mean, it wasn't the theme of the conference, but man, did we talk about a lot about AI a couple of weeks ago. So really excited to have you, Joe, break down, what really you're going soup to nuts of like, what is it, where is it going in the industry, and what technology are we seeing? So really excited.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be the continuing topic of the profession, no doubt.
For sure.
I 100% agree. And so I'll move through some of these really quickly. So, as always, we are grateful to our sponsors, and it allows us to be able to present to you and bring to you content that's free. And so we are on YouTube. Our episodes are shared to YouTube. So if you have a app in mind, Heather and I have covered 150 different episodes, and most of those episodes are all about the apps that are inside of our community, industry, and profession. And so we share what is best in class and help you to understand how to use them. And this year, Zero is sponsoring Happy Hour. They are doing it in a way that is big and large and wants to be seen. We had a lot of asks for a different GL because we had been QuickBooks centric for quite a long time. And so we are exploring Zero. We've got a Zero cohort. We will actually meet on Friday. So those of you who are
Mhm.
interested in learning Zero, reach out and chat, and we will add you to that cohort. And yes, we are raising a toast, and I am going to put our drink up here because I made a special trip, Joe, to the liquor store so I could get some Guinness. For all of you who are not Guinness fans, I'm going to tell you, try it. And, one of the things that I hear a lot is, well, I don't like beer. But Guinness is in a class all its own. It doesn't have the
Right.
carbonation that makes you feel bloated. And so this particular cocktail, Guinness cocktail in a way, is delicious. So I'm
It is delicious. So here is to a successful Scaling New Heights 2025 and looking forward to a incredible Scaling New Heights 2026. And thank you, Joe.
here, here.
Mm. Joe, you're muted.
You
You
are
gotta unmute
muted.
your phone, but you're muted. Can we unmute? We're gonna ask him to unmute. You're totally muted,
Oh,
Joe.
I'm sorry. I'm totally muted because I was typing earlier. Yeah, so I was saying that I have my Guinness, but came ill prepared with no bottle opener. So
Oh, well,
yes,
you'll have to celebrate after.
I'll just have to celebrate after. It's not quite 5 o'clock anyway. I'm one of those. All right.
So we've celebrated Scaling New Heights 2025, and I'd love to just spend a second talking about Scaling New Heights 2026 and the theme, Joe, and the vision that you have for next year's conference. And then we're going to jump into AI.
Yep. Awesome. All right. So just kind of to summarize it a little bit, and I think it's inseparable from AI, as Heather mentioned. Um, our theme this year was "Make It So," and in that whole theme, it was about intentionality, direction, productivity, but not just in volume of work and effectiveness. What are we going to do to have an actual plan? And what do we do very first for that plan? So when I opened up the show, I reminded everyone, because I'm assuming everybody's read The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, by Stephen Covey. But if you haven't read it in a while or not read it, something that kind of gets forgotten about the be proactive and put first things first, or rather, I'm sorry, begin with the end in mind and put first things first, is that in all of those 3 habits, you are the first three, you are becoming the creator and you're creating your first creation. And those terms are very powerful. Now he uses little c, of course, but you become the creator and you're creating your first creation. And what's most powerful about that is the first creation is the actual goal you set. So when Shantae Lowe came on Sunday night and talked about how it was her goal to be a medalist in the Olympics, and all the things that she did, including struggling with breast cancer and people who cheated, and then they had to come back and make it right with the Olympic Committee, all those struggles that she had, she never changed that creation. And that creation, when she was a little girl, was I am going to be an Olympic medalist. And then everything else gave agency to that once she created that dream. So we decided before we would hear Shantae speak and inspire us that we would all write down our first creation on. So, there were about almost 2,000 people at the conference, over 1,500 people filled out cards and created their first creation, which is what they were going to make so when they got back into the office. And I still have the pictures of all of those places that we pinned those up. All 1,500 or so of those cards, however many actually got to the board. And there's some fascinating pieces of sort of what people are working on. So we are going to be sharing that out at scalingnewheights.com for everyone to see in our recap of the show. And we're going to have ChatGPT read all of them and break it down and form a downloadable resource out of it so you can see what your friends are up to. Now, over the next 4 days, we continued to focus in on making it so, whether it was team processes, services, ideal client profile, brand, marketing, sales, pricing. It was all about that intentional change when we get back to the office.
Absolutely. It was fantastic. And it's so funny because on our side, Joe, for us, it's a blur, right? There's
Yeah.
so much work that we put into it. And then it's you land in Orlando and we're there days and days and days before, everybody arrives, and then you blink and it's the last day and it's
Yeah.
and we're packing up and it's incredible. It's incredible to be a part of it.
Absolutely. And as an attendee and as somebody who has a chance to present there, I see it as it's such a growing opportunity because you lean into what's happening in our profession in such a profound way that allows us to do, like, even that setting your intention of what is it that you want to do or accomplish by being there. It's such a wonderful opportunity to walk away not only inspired, but taking action on that inspiration. So for anybody who's here that hasn't been, I encourage you to join that. It's a community, and I encourage you to enjoy that and join that.
Liz, let's
Well,
go to the next slide because I'd love for Joe to just talk 1 second. Oh, never mind. That is the next slide, which is the AI. Yes,
yeah, that's
awesome.
it. David actually gave us the segue there. He said, "What
He
was new in
did.
AI?" Right. So, and so I can answer that with a segue to David's question, and then we can talk about the topic in a broader sense. But David, the big topic of the conversation about a year or so ago was ChatGPT, and now that's sort of old news. It's sort of as revolutionary as Google as far as as informing people of what it is. I think everybody in the world's informed into this large language model, which we'll unpack a little bit here. It's getting more and more capable. So there was a little bit of ChatGPT training at the show to make sure that you were prompting it correctly, to kind of catch up on the latest 4.0 features and its trajectory where it's headed. Some of the new chatbots that are out, because it's not, of course, the only GPT, and some that are industry specific. A lot of people don't know there's a GPT and so forth. So we were creating that kind of awareness. But the real thing that was different this year, David, was the way that AI has been infused into the software solutions that you subscribe to. Not only have platforms that offer practice management, like some of the ones that sponsor here, not only have they infused that into their platforms for auto scripting emails or their kind of client correspondence, but even all the way to the heart of what we do with tax preparation and with record keeping, bookkeeping, whatever you call it. All of that now is increasingly being automated by the bots, and not in a way that's fluffy, in a way that's substantial. And then we heard firms like Decimal with hundreds of clients on an AI platform called Puzzle, and the way that they're automating some 80-90% of that entire book of business and sending less and less work to their employees in the Philippines. So it's getting very real out there. AI's happening.
It is. I mean, we just saw Intuit just released a bunch of AI agents into QuickBooks Online. I haven't had a chance to dig into it yet. That's on my evening activity for tonight. But I'm excited to kind of dig in and see what they actually do. And Liz has been testing out. She actually taught a really fantastic class at Scaling New Heights this year on AI. And did some demos, which was really cool, and actually a panel with a couple of firms that have really, leaned into it. So
Yes.
really cool stuff.
It was an awesome opportunity to be able to say, the firm that you're talking about that has automated so much of their processes with when it comes to bookkeeping and review and data analysis, what they're doing with AI is incorporated in all of those areas. And one of the other firms that was part of that panel, they've got 2,500 plus employees. And so they're also pulling it into their operations. And so how do they create an engagement? And then how do they monitor that engagement to make sure that there's not scope creep? They're using AI in that process.
Mhm.
So lots of ways that AI is being incorporated. And at the mid-size, large-size firm level, they have a lot of resources that some of the smaller firms don't have, but that doesn't mean that as a small firm that we can't utilize a lot of these tools that are available.
Yeah, it's as easy as subscribing and learning now, if that's the path you want to go.
Right.
Agreed.
All
Well, Joe,
right. So Liz, you're going to
I'm
play
getting,
Vanna, right?
that was what I was getting ready to ask. So, Joe, I was going to say, I've got the slides up. So if you want to tell me when to advance, I can, or if you're wanting to lead, I can do that too.
I think maybe I'll just have you advance because it's all just easy to manage. So if you'll go into the learning objectives. All right, so folks, what we're going to talk about today with AI, I'm going to level set with everyone because AI is a term that flies around in the room a lot, and it tends to get equated with large language models and generative AI, in other words, GPT. But it's bigger than that. It's broader than that, and so we're going to level set and then maybe expand the reach and the scope of what a lot of folks think about when they think AI. And then we're going to talk about how AI powered solutions expedite that financial analysis and those accounting cycles a little more specifically. And then I'm going to create some actionable steps in the spirit of Make It So theme for this year's conference. So, how would you actually act on some of this AI stuff so it becomes practical and not theoretical? So, we've got a lot to cover here in the next 30 minutes or so. All right, so let's talk about the core types of AI first, if you want to go on to the next slide. Um, and the biggest takeaway from any kind of research you do on AI is data. Heather and I went to a class at Brown University, a continuing ed class. One of the smartest people I've met in the corporate segment on artificial intelligence was leading that class. He was an adjunct professor in the corporate world, which gave him extreme credibility given the nature of the topic, which is how to use AI in corporate America. And there were corporations alongside us that dwarfed us, Heather. You know, some of the top 500 had sent people there. It was a very smart group of people.
Was.
And the professor from Brown led out with this statement right out of the gate that AI is only as powerful as the data to which it has access. I paraphrase.
Mm.
So the larger the data set, the smarter the machine. Think of an extremely intelligent human brain that has never received an input of data, if such theoretical situations could exist, but has nonetheless the capacity to still learn all the same things. That would be AI without the information. Now, where AI surpasses humans is in its ability to think through, and I'm going to use think loosely, large sets of data faster than a human being can, but it is not as smart as we are. It cannot make the connections we can. That is something that people are either predicting won't happen for 50 years or won't happen ever. It depends on who you talk to. And we'll kind of break that down too. I'm going to come back around to this data thing a lot. So we'll move to the next slide. So if we just kind of fill this whole thing up so we can move, but if artificial intelligence, then you've got Apple now making a big deal about how their phones and their Macs are artificial intelligence ready. You know, what is that? What does it even mean? Because artificial intelligence is supposed to be software, right? But there is an artificial intelligence classification or attribute, you could call it, for hardware now that's starting to emerge. Big topic in the Apple event that just happened. If you have an Apple TV or access to that, you can stream that. Strongly recommend, even if you're an Android person, just to see what the bleeding edge developers are doing in this area. Now the PC world's catching up, and pretty soon you're going to hear this over the next 12 to 18 months. You're going to hear we have AI capable, AI enabled, AI empowered, AI curated. All these terms are going to start emerging into the market. And all it means is that the artificial intelligence algorithms run locally as well as in the cloud. Take all the mystery out of it, take all the hype out of it. That's all that means. But it's a big deal for how fast the device will compute, especially in slow network environments like cell phones and airplanes. And this is the even bigger one, how private the data is. Apple's making a big deal about the fact that its artificial intelligence algorithms can run locally and never share the variables that are placed into that algorithm with anything outside that device. And they are, in my quasi-informed opinion, you'd have to ask Randy Johnston to be sure. I believe they're leading out in AI privacy and security for that reason. And then others will follow suit. Now, AI uses machine learning, but that's another thing is it's not equated. So if you ever hear somebody go, yeah, machine learning is AI, AI is machine learning, or use them interchangeably, that is not accurate. Machine learning is a component of artificial intelligence, but it's just one subcomponent. And we have so far moved past, the developers have moved so far past simple machine learning with its embedded conditional statements. The most simplistic understanding of a machine learning is a child sticks their finger in a socket and then they create a conditional statement. If I stick my finger in the socket, it will hurt. That didn't stop Liz, of course, from blowing her finger off, but so I guess we're all still learning. Picking on you, Liz. But the point is,
Forever
from the
student.
very beginning, we've programmed our machines, our brain, in these conditional statements. If we do this, then this happens, good or bad. The machines were just creating conditional statements when it was machine learning. But now it's moved to the point where it's analyzing, interpreting large data sets and creating conclusions that mimic what a human would do. Now, right now, we are in the age of narrow AI. And narrow AI, like ChatGPT, like all the solutions you would have seen or did see at Scaling New Heights, it can do specific tasks. These specific tasks mimic limited sets of human thought and action. They're also known as agents. So when Intuit, like Heather said, introduced agents into their software this past week, or you see people saying that your chat GPT is an agent, right? But people can also program agents on the platform. All they're really doing, just take all that mystery out of it, is they're saying, I am programming something using architecture way beyond me, right? I'm kind of calling that architecture to train it to behave or respond or act in a certain way, not just with information, but with the way that information is interpreted or assimilated. That's called an agent. And then when you have multiple agents stacked together, you get something called agentic AI. But all it's really doing is taking all these simple, maybe not simple, but mimicked limited sets of actions. Specific actions would be the word, and it's combining them together. So now you can have hundreds or even thousands of specific actions that are being performed in a series of if-then statements, and it starts to really creep you out like you're talking to a human, but it's mimicking. It's no more uh, sentient than a parrot would be when a parrot freaks you out on how clearly it speaks. It's just much more intelligent than the parent, right? Than the parrot. Now, general AI is the one that everybody, well, not everybody, a lot of people think has already happened, and it evokes a lot of fear that should not exist. There is no general AI. There's not the stuff of science fiction where, the robots are going to take over the world and destroy us independently of the humans. That general AI is theoretical. It's considered theoretical. That's the official position of the programming scientific and research community, is that it's theoretical, and a lot of people believe it's impossible to create. Um, Even those that believe it's possible um, say that it's going to require quantum computing, like Michio Kaku talked about last year at Scaling New Heights, and say that it is decades away, even at the exponential growth of artificial intelligence. So I've got good news for you. Um, you know, we're not going to be at war with the robots. We're not living in that world yet of Terminator. Yeah. Okay. So the next slide. Now, don't confuse generative with general. Generative AI language models like ChatGPT, they generate things. They generate text strings, but you've also seen that they can generate videos. It can generate images. If you want to spend a lot of money, you can get the videos that, requires curation and monitoring on social platforms to call people out. But it actually looks like a cruise ship crashed into a building or something like that, and it will fool you because it's so real. And it takes either an AI programmer or it takes an AI bot to spot the AI's work. And then you start seeing these little things pop up that this is AI and this is why. Now, if I saw one today where 20 people were riding around in a whale's mouth. Okay, that's obviously AI. But for a second, you can think maybe the cruise ship did, crash into the dock. No, it's just AI. And you're talking about people that are just spending a few bucks, relatively speaking, to generate very sophisticated video clips that used to take millions of dollars for Hollywood to produce. Now, there was an interesting prediction that was given at Scaling New Heights by one of our instructors, and it made its way to me. I can't ever go to the breakouts, but an attendee brought it up to me. They said that that social media is going to die off in the next 5 to 10 years. And the basis for their prediction, really smart guy, David Sislick from RightWorks, but he was teaching a session, and he said it's going to die off because nobody increasingly can trust what they see.
Mm.
And the whole reason we went there, now you might still connect with friends and family and stuff, but the whole reason that we did the doom scrolling was because we were seeing what we knew back in the day was a real cat, was a real dog, was a real sheep going back or whatever it was, right? Or we might have thought it was enhanced a little. But now whenever you look at every post and you're like, is it even real? Is it even real? I mean, already haven't you thought the thoughts? Why am I even looking at this? I don't know what's real and not real. And by the way, I don't think humanity's going to be any the lesser for getting rid of the doom scrolling. You know, happy to see that go away. And then maybe we can use the social media for just the real connections. Self-driving cars are a combination of a lot of different kinds of AI technologies, including machine learning, vision inputs. We learned a lot about this, Heather, at our Brown course, because how the data arrives into the data sets for AI to interpret is not just now, somebody typing the information in to teach the AI models or something it reads online. It's now no longer theoretical that artificial intelligence can use cameras to see what is happening in its environment, to listen to what's happening in its environment, to interpret those things, and to form them into the data set that it then runs its algorithms across. And that's why, and I drive a Tesla, and the self-driving has increased significantly even in the last 12 months, where before it struggled with construction sites. It struggled with new merge lanes that came up in the last couple of days. But now it can see and interpret these things in real time, and the self-driving has become nearly autonomous. I don't even have to touch the wheel anymore, but it does constantly look at my eyes. And the artificial intelligent bots will interpret that I'm not paying attention, and it will scold me with a buzz on my seat and stuff like that. So it's watching me too. Maybe we're back to creepy. Personal assistants like Siri or Alexa, are good examples. Siri is not actually a very good example. Alexa's better, but imagine a very imminent world where ChatGPT, where Siri or Alexa can give you the kinds of conversational responses of ChatGPT. Now, there are some websites, and Heather, you featured one, you and Liz did at Appy Camp, I thought was particularly entertaining. And it had the little, human speaking back to you and everything. So the websites are much more sophisticated than these sort of hardware driven platforms are. But that convergence is imminent. And you're going to begin to have these long conversations with Siri or Alexa or whoever it is that manufactures the device you're using, that are going to be meaningful, conversational. They're gonna learn what you like and don't like, and it's even proven they can manipulate you. With Alexa, that's particularly disturbing since you can order things through that. But then expert systems, I'm half joking, right? And then you've got these expert systems that are diagnosing diseases. So we come back to the data set thing. Right now, even in this manifestation of AI, research and development was where we got the fastest benefit as humanity, because you're talking about large sets of data and variable combinations in order to determine what the cure might be or the treatment might be for a particular disease. And where it would have taken a computer of without artificial intelligence in our modern world, even 5 years ago, what might have taken hundreds of years of computing resources, time would have been the issue more than the resources. Artificial intelligence can now do in days. And when it intersects quantum computing, Michio Kaku tells us in seconds. So the larger the data, the smarter the AI. But the brain of that metaphor, that's the intelligence. The brain is still the most limiting factor for artificial intelligence. And that brain is computing power. Watch the brain take off as quantum computing becomes more and more prevalent. All right, next slide. Because I am going to land this into the accounting profession, I promise. Right now, we're just flying at 30,000 feet. So here are the key takeaways. AI can perform specific tasks, but not general tasks. We're not in the age where you can actually have a real relationship with a sentient being that's artificial. AI agents work together, and that's called agentic. Agentic AI combines those numerous specific tasks together. And that's where we're going to get to accountancy now. Because if I was taking one task, go look at the mountains of research data, say for particular kinds of cancer research, that would take a human thousands of years, a computer hundreds of years, but would take artificial intelligence just a matter of days or weeks, then that's a specific task. Look at the data, find these things out, and it's all just full force volume computing that it speeds up the process. But it's one specific task. Think about what happens with bookkeeping. And I went straight there because tax returns are fewer specific tasks than bookkeeping. Bookkeeping was always considered to be the safety zone from artificial intelligence, whether you consider that to be a good or bad, right? The zone where it can't help, it can't hurt. And the reason for that argument, I used to make the same argument, several years ago, even as recently as 24 months ago, was because it takes way too many specific tasks in order to determine how to code to a job, to a class, how to accrue payroll in specific ways, and to deal with all the variables that come into play. But now when we have cars, and I'm not making a statement for or against Elon Musk, his company happened to manufacture my car. I like my car, right? So the point of me coming back to the Tesla is to speak what its capabilities are, and it's extremely advanced artificial intelligence. In an age where a car can see a cat running across the street and slam on the brakes by itself, might that same artificial intelligence capability look at an expense report, look at a timesheet, look at the variable of what somebody bought at the Chevron that might or might not have been gas, or the Walmart that might or might not have been personal, and interpret that and either hit the brakes on whether it's a recorded entry in the books for the company, or accelerate the fact that it goes to a particular job or class. And that's not theoretical. It's happening all around us right now with some of the technologies that were on our show floor. So agentic AI is changing the game. All right, next slide. All right, so key takeaway here, AI can perform those specific tasks. The larger the data set, the better. Data is critical. Now, why do I keep coming back to data? Because puzzle, one of the technologies that happen to be at scaling, and I'm just picking them because of their wait time, puzzle was in market for 5 years before they approached accountants because they knew that creating the algorithms was only half of the equation. All of the different variables that come into closing a bookkeeping cycle, that's the other part of the equation. And until they had a large enough data set from the thousands of users that are using Puzzle, they knew that they weren't going to waste their time coming to accountants because you would have blown holes all the way through it. But now they've approached the accounting market with mountains of data so that the algorithms can interpret how to code that Walmart receipt and then give you a confidence level as to whether or not it's 90%, 95%, or 100% confident in the way it coded it to office equipment, office supplies, or personal expenses. And then you get to come in and review it, just as you would do with a bookkeeper. It creates its own suspense account in a way. All right, so next slide. All right, so there's an old saying that we have to adapt for our new world. So I can really drive this point home. And you can show them the old saying here, Liz, that they who have the gold make the rules, right? But as you'll see here in the next slide, it's now they who have the data, make the gold. Okay. So if you go to the next slide, the data rule is they who have the data make the rules. Data is the gold of our century, the gold certainly of our decade, and this is the gold rush of our age, is to get to data and as much of it as you possibly can. Now, if you think of who holds the largest data set in the world around small business, you've got a couple of players. ADP would be a contender, but they only see that piece. The one who holds the most data on planet Earth is the one who does the books. Globally, that would be Intuit at the lead. Then you start getting players like Zoho and Zero, who have millions of clients. But once you have millions of small businesses using your platform, and though that platform or platforms Zero and Zoho are off reading from other sources and pulling that data in through their APIs, the treasure troves of data live in the general ledger systems. Now, as Heather pointed out, Intuit just launched agents into Intuit into QuickBooks through its Intuit Assist platform, which means that Intuit's artificial intelligence is more informed than the artificial intelligence platforms that have to read from the QuickBooks file, and even more informed than the ones that bypass QuickBooks altogether. They've been playing chess while everybody else is playing checkers. They're the smartest people in the room right now. And they announced this back in 2019 that this was going to be the age of AI, and it was all going to be about building the data. Now, I'm not trying to convince you to buy QBO or not buy QBO. I'm just telling you the facts on the ground. Now, does it mean that the other players are not going to catch up? Of course they are. I mean, Xero already has, the foothold in multiple countries. If you want the largest data set for small business in Australia and New Zealand, increasingly in the UK and Canada, you're not going to look to Intuit. You're going to look to Xero. I think you're going to start seeing that increasingly being the case here in the US. If you want to know what the largest data set of data is in India, if you want the Middle East, you're going to need to go to Zoho. You just got to pick who's dominant in the space. But the company with the data makes the rules. All right, next slide. The future of accountancy, therefore, it's inseparable from the future of data. All right, next slide. All right, and section 2. So now that we know what these agents can do and what they can't do, now that we know that they are an interpretive algorithm to generate and to respond around large sets of data, let's start landing the balloon. How does this intersect the profession? All right, next slide. All right, so when you're looking at a solution-based approach, you're looking at the automation of entry process coming through financial institutions, mobile apps and imaging devices, integrated operational systems, and outsourced and integrated processes. And then I have these subcategories underneath each of these buckets that we probably deal with all the time. Bank feeds, credit card feeds, vendor bills, phone capture of receipts, point of sale. I'm just kind of reading them all across the map. All I've really done is taken the world you already live in, categorized it into several different umbrella categories of software to make the point that through machine learning, as the if-then statements are now and knowing how to interpret the variables of that Walmart receipt, right? It's able to go straight from the camera on your client's employee's phone, just like my Tesla spots the cat. The optical device on the phone of the employee of your client is spotting that receipt and is capturing that receipt, is interpreting what to do with it, just like putting the brakes on in my Tesla. What do I do with it? It's an extremely intelligent parsing technology to break that down line by line now, and either automatically record it if it has 100% confidence, or shoot it through to a suspense lid. They don't call it a suspense account, but a sort of a review sheet for you to push through the ones that are within your tolerance or edit them. This is happening, and it's instantaneous from the Walmart where the person's walking out the store taking a picture with their phone all the way through to the books. All right, so and point of sale systems and other integrated systems don't even need the AI. That's all just your traditional mapping. So either through automation or AI interpretation, we're closing all the gaps. Some of you have been doing this kind of thing for 10 years, and you're like 50% may be the cap out of my automation. And that's if there's a heavy medical billing or point of sale solution or something like that. But but now you're going to start seeing 80, 85%, 90, 95%. And increasingly for any given client, say some 20, 30% of your bookkeeping clients, you might see 100%. That just that it's learned, it's got it figured out, it can do what a human can do, mimicking, of course, the behaviors of a human. All right, next slide. All right. So some challenges that are still persistent. Let's call this the job security slide for the bookkeepers in the audience, right? The line item details I mentioned probably will come out with something less than 100% confidence level. But the good news is you're going to get the chance to review them. The AI is still smart enough that it knows what to push out to you for review and what you don't. And some of the systems even allow you to set the tolerance at 85, 90, or 95% or whatever. But that's your job security is somebody still needs to monitor the AI and review the AI. Think of it in its development stage as being maybe 12, 13 years old. And, you have to really supervise a 12 or 13-year old. You can't just let that thing run wild. Paper checks, as long as people are sending paper checks, you have job security because somebody has to actually take a picture of that crazy thing. And then even if banks start to actually feed it through, there's much more interpretation of what's happening on the piece of paper. Localized regulatory compliance. I don't think for the next several years we're going to see artificial intelligence file local property tax returns, business license renewals. Definitely, how can AI even legitimately take minutes of an owner meeting in an S corp or LLC partnership? So, because then you're not even really doing it. So you still have to have the meetings and things like that and take the notes as a human. So these more granular areas of regulatory compliance are a great area of job security. I would also throw in here managerial compliance. It doesn't exist on the slide, but you don't really uh, AI can't really monitor. It can monitor and flag if somebody's staying at a Ritz-Carlton when they're supposed to be staying in a courtyard. But you don't want AI having the confrontational conversation. You don't want it to be the one informing management or enforcing as management what's happening with those policies and procedures. That's a human's role. That's a leader's role. Banking and financial documents are tightening the access to the data. So you're actually seeing something very interesting happen here. You're seeing the software companies fusing into financial institutions because they're tired of the financial institutions blocking them out. One of the companies on our show floor, Row, is a bank. And then the thing to watch for if somebody's purporting to be a bank that's really a software solution and they're saying, but we're also your bank, just make sure they're FDIC because that's the next hurdle. Very quickly, I just talked with somebody who's an insider within that category, and they were telling me that the FDIC is starting to move into these sort of quasi banks or virtual banks to protect you and to legitimize what they're doing. Not legitimize is a strong word. To formalize what they're doing would be a better word. Okay, so the next slide. So for complex accounting functions, those accruals, I used to say it was a little more job security than until I saw some of the players at scaling new heights. I've mentioned Puzzle a lot, but there was also TrueWin, Arrive, Digits. There's so many to explore. And now you have the Intuit agents. You're going to start seeing some of these complex accruals happening automatically, or at least at making recommendations. I see that Glenn or Sally has been working on this job site for the last 2 months. I also see that the job isn't finished yet. Can I assume that we're going to make their allocation of their payroll to this particular job? It's going to start talking to you like a smart producer, and that would include, of course, the job cost. Also, ADP's made big strides lately in its integration with QBO around job costing. So that's going to, for the automation side, not the AI side, it's going to help us a lot. Cost recognition, revenue recognition. Again, I used to think it was a safer playground, but some of the solutions I saw at scaling, they were doing a great job with the revenue rec, pulling in data from platforms like Square and Stripe, and automatically knowing based on the company's products, deliverables, shipping, landed costs. It's able to compute so much of that either through the programming of the software or the interpretation of its AI layers. All right, so the next slide. What do we do? Right? How do we respond to this? In my final keynote address, when I was transitioning from Make It So to our new theme, which we're going to talk about in a minute, Strange New World, spoiler alert, it's out there, it's already on the website. But when I was transitioning over to from Make It So to Strange New World, um, I made the statement that we ignore all the changes that are taking place in our profession to our peril, but we also obsess about them to our peril. So what lives between obsessing? We could also call it fretting. So what lives between fretting and fear? Preparation. Preparation. And that means that you need to have a plan. Whether you come to Scaling New Heights to get that plan or not, we happen to think we're positioned well to give you a plan. We have some of the nation's leading experts, the world's leading experts coming in to guide that process. But wherever you get it, you need to prepare. All right, the next slide. So what are the steps to embrace it, to leverage it? Just go ahead and build this all the way out so I can move through it. You want to build this modern technology stack and you want to be consistent in your use of it. I have a lot of people that say, well, for 20% of my clients, I use a payable solution, but the other 80% only have 3 or 4 bills a month. All right. Well, find a solution with scaled pricing where it's not cost prohibitive. Just put 100% of your clients on a technology stack. And that way 100% are running through your machine. It isn't so much that you can't think about it in silos. Like if I were the client, I wouldn't have a payable solution, but you're not the client. You are preparing a portfolio for however many dozens or hundreds of clients. And any time that that's not a fully automated process, you're creating unnecessary friction. So accounts payable solutions, e-commerce solutions, document handling, document parsing. Think of it like the data. Remember data. And the more data you have inside and readable by the platform you choose, any of the ones I named off and those I didn't, whatever the platform is, the more informed it is, the more capable it is. AI without data is a one-legged stool. And if you're just putting in what the net change in payables was, but you're not running all that payables detail across the rails of your artificial intelligence system, it's a pretty dumb artificial intelligence system. All right. So the next bullet, we can go all the way through the bottom of the slide. That's fine. So the next tip I would give you is engage with generative AI directly. There's nothing that can be hurt by just going to any of these accessible and often free GPTs, as long as, look at my note here, as long as you don't put any sensitive financial information or personal sensitive information in them, unless that information has been what's called tokenized. These AI platforms will call AI code, but they tokenize your data. Make sure they're doing that. All right. But if you go to ChatGPT directly, there are private versions of that and other platforms. So every time I go to ChatGPT, there's a little Woodard logo in the top, and that reminds me that we are behind the privacy wall and we can upload information about our financials or human resource policies or whatever, and just like any other software system, permission them out and keep them private from external parties as well as permissioned out within the company. So I encourage you to go out in there and start talking to ChatGPT. I with a warning, it is public unless you have a private version of that software. Okay. Next slide. I've got a quote I'll leave you on here. It's often quoted, and this is an appropriation of a quote, by the way, the humanity was the original quote. And we appropriated it for accountants. Artificial intelligence won't replace accountants. It will replace accountants who don't use artificial intelligence. That feels good. I wish it were true. The actual truthful statement comes next. And I know that it seems like I'm saying that that universal statement is not true, and my statement is, but okay, you came here to hear me teach. So, okay. Artificial intelligence will eventually replace most of accountancy. It will. And that's not a bad thing because we're in a staffing crisis and we're in a massive retire off. Maybe this is intersecting us at just the right time. It's the medicine we need. But most of the work of accountants will be gone. Services that are enabled by AI will survive longer. And services that, this is the key word, and I'm borrowing from Daniel Susskind, who's going to be coming back to scaling this year. Services that cannot or ought not be performed by AI will survive indefinitely. So back to that managerial compliance. Could theoretically generative AI call somebody and with a computer voice that mimics a human voice confront them over staying at the Ritz-Carlton? Sure. Ought
Mhm.
it to do that? No. So the more you can be involved in the functions of a company that are in that ought not and cannot, the longer you're going to remain relevant in an AI universe. And I know I'm looking at the clock. I've got one more slide. So we're going to lay out all of that in one slide here, just build it all out. If you're looking at the horizons of what to lean into, I would recommend that you lean, and you can put the year horizons down at the bottom, Liz, just keep building a couple more builds there. If you're looking at FP&A, it'll be quickly disrupted. Analytics is the playground of artificial intelligence. Income tax analysis, it's its playground. It can read the tax code, it can read your client's financials and its tax returns, and it can come up with a strategy. That's existent technology. Income tax preparation, the tax code is limited. Anytime that you have a limited set of variables, you're in the playground of AI. If it can research large mountains of medical data and try to come up with treatments for cancer, believe me, it can manage the tax code. But complex bookkeeping or accounting, it can get to that 85, 90, 95% we talked about. You're the reviewer, you're the interpreter, you're making the judgment calls alongside the owner. And when you get into the operational pieces, managerial compliance and more regionalized and localized regulatory compliance, back office process administration, I don't predict that the bots are ever going to be able to touch that. That's a human function. Audit will have no displacement because you still have to have a human signing an audit report. It's just that the work to prepare the audit will be streamlined. And in income tax representation, you have to have a credentialed person to represent you, an EA or CPA. The credentialings protect those industries. I don't see that changing. I think the AI CPA is going to make sure that that doesn't change. All right, I may have other slides, but I'm out of time. And that is the end of my presentation effectively. So
Right on time.
3 minutes, sorry.
Well, Joe, I have to say thank you for coming and sharing this insightful information with the community. And, for those of you here who are not familiar with Scaling New Heights, 2026 is a huge year. And I shared that the reason that I am so excited about 2026 falls back on a year that I also was very excited about, which was Tame the Machines.
Mhm.
And I have twins, and one of those, as we were leading up to Tame the Machines, I found sitting on my stairs, and he was crying. And I said, "What's wrong?" And he's one of those kids that at 12 years old, he was sitting on the stairs crying because he had been listening to Stephen Hawkins, and he said, "There's no hope."
Mhm.
And he's always been interested in the quantum realm, and so I talked to him about Tame the Machines, and I'm kind of tearing up because it hit me hard because it was one of those that as a very young kid, he was absorbing this idea of where do we go with humanity. So I've invited him to come to 2026 because Tame the Machines, you were talking about it. Dr. David Sussex is going to, and I don't know if I'm saying that
Susskind, yeah.
Susskind
Tuscan.
is going to be the one who's going to be coming back. And so I want my son to be able to hear what is this workless future? And, it's not so much that it's workless, it's just
No.
where does work exist?
Where does work exist? That's it. Yes.
Right.
And so
And
I want for everybody to hear where we're headed. And so I think that this is a very important year to lean into.
it is. And we have another keynote speaker that we're really excited about is April Ryan, who is an expert in change. And so she's written a book called Flux. And she's going to be focusing and helping us as, practitioners and as humans, really, that are facing this new world. How do you adapt to the change? How do you thrive through the change and really embrace it? So I think we have this incredible 1-2 punch of
We do.
like, here's the reality, and then here's how we're actually going to be able to thrive in this new reality. So we're really
Yes.
excited about what we have planned for next year.
Yes. Awesome.
Well, as always, I would say to everyone here, Joe moved through this information very quick. There was a lot to unpack. And so there was practical advice that was really deeply entrenched in a lot of what was said. If you want to recap, if you want to listen to it again, it will be on YouTube very soon by the end of this week. And so I encourage you to, if there's areas that you want to go replay, I know I probably will, check out the YouTube channel. And
Absolutely.
again, thank you to our sponsors. And I will be at Bridging the Gap very soon. So it's another opportunity to lead into what's happening in our community. I know some of the names that are here are also going to be there. So it's a chance to be able to see some of these AI solutions in action. And absolutely, we should be at least checking them out. Maybe not full adoption yet, because I do think that they're in a place of learning and exploring what's possible, even amongst those solutions. They want to know what we need. So there's a lot of development there, and we should definitely be exploring that.
Awesome. Well, folks are asking, Liz, Linda was asking how, for registering for Scaling New Heights, you can register for Scaling New Heights at www.scalingnewheights.com. And then Linda was asking, can we get a discount code? Well, here's the good news is that we have 2 sales coming up for Scaling New Heights where you can save big. The first one is going to be on Cyber Monday. So watch for that. We launched that on Cyber Monday. You'll be able to save on that. And then our second opportunity to save on Scaling New Heights is on Groundhog Day. So we have a Groundhog Day sale every year. So those will be your opportunities, your next opportunities to save on Scaling New Heights. And we'd love to see you there.
Well, thank you, Joe, for joining us. And thank you to our Happy Hour community for tuning in. And until next time, take care.
Great to
Thanks,
be
Joe.
here. Thank you.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Bye.